When the American trading vessel, the Boston, arrived at Nootka Sound in March 1803, Chief Maquinna, chief of the Nootka-Nulth Moachat, had been trading with Europeans for more than 2 decades. Maquinna was the chief of the Moachat group of the Nootka-Nulth, and Jewitt describes him in his journal as a man of dignified aspect, about 6 feet tall in height and extremely straight and well proportioned. His features were in general good, and his face was rendered remarkable by a large Roman nose, a very uncommon form of feature among these people. His complexion was of a dark copper hue, though his face, legs and arms were on this occasion so covered with red paint that their natural colour could scarcely be perceived. His eyebrows were painted black in 2 broad stripes, like a new moon, and his long black hair, which shone with oil, was fastened over with white down, which gave him a most curious and extraordinary appearance. He greeted the new arrival as was customary, coming aboard to welcome the captain and assess the trading possibilities. He offered Captain John Salter fresh salmon as a welcoming gesture, and later received a gift, a double-barreled rifle. With it, he shot some ducks and made a gift of them to Salter in the ongoing escalation of business protocol. In the course of the hunt, one of the locks on the gun had broken, and Maquinna told Salter that it was peshak, that it was bad. Salter assumed the chief had broken it with misuse and called him a liar, among other insults, and gave the gun to the blacksmith John Jewitt to repair. Maquinna had acquired a rudimentary knowledge of English in his dealings with Europeans, and Jewitt realized that Maquinna understood the tenor of Salter's slurs.
Unfortunately, he understood but too well the meaning of the reproachful terms that the captain addressed to him. He said not a word in reply, but his countenance sufficiently expressed the rage he felt, though he exerted himself to suppress it. I observed him, while the captain was speaking, repeatedly put his hand to his throat and rub it upon his bosom, which he afterwards told me was to keep down his heart, which was rising into his throat and choking him.
The next day, Maquinna returned with several of his chiefs, bringing their usual gift of salmon. He was wearing a wooden mask that had been carved to resemble a fierce animal. The natives danced wildly for the Boston's crew, then stayed for dinner. Shortly after they finished, Jewitt, who was at his bench in steerage cleaning muskets, heard a commotion above him and ran up the stairs. One of the chiefs grabbed Jewitt by the hair but lost his hold as he swung an axe toward it. Jewitt missed being decapitated but was hit in the forehead, a clean gash that penetrated his skull, and he collapsed unconscious into steerage.
I fell stunned and senseless upon the floor. I was, however, soon recalled to my recollection by 3 loud shouts or yells from the savages, which convinced me that they had got possession of the ship. It is impossible to describe my feelings at this terrific sound.
After the capture of the Boston on March 22nd, 1803, when the ship's blacksmith John Jewitt came to, he crawled up to the deck where 6 blood-streaked, naked natives pointed daggers at him. Maquinna addressed Jewitt by name, having observed him at his trade during visits to the Boston.
"John, I speak. You no say no. You say no. Daggers come,"
he said. He asked Jewitt a series of questions. Would he be Maquinna's slave for life? Would he fight for him in his battles? Would he repair the muskets and make knives for him? It was this last quality that caused Jewitt to be spared. Maquinna recognized his practical worth. Jewitt carefully answered yes to each question, and Maquinna led him to the quarterdeck, where the 25 heads of the Boston's captain and crew were arranged in a neat line on a thick lamina of blood. Each head was brought to Jewitt for identification. One of his eyes was swollen shut from a wound in his forehead, and he blinked through the other, offering the grim roll call. A second man, John Thompson, the ship's sailmaker, was found alive and spared, after Jewitt convinced Maquinna that Thompson, who was 20 years older than Jewitt, was in fact his father. Jewitt threatened suicide if his father was killed, and reminded Maquinna that he would lose his services. Maquinna reluctantly spared Thompson. The Boston was emptied and scuttled, and the people held a potlatch, a feast and a triumphant show of power where a chief welcomes his guests by handing out armloads of his excess wealth. 20 coastal tribes came to join in the feast. They put on dresses from the ship's trunks, put stockings on their heads, slung cartridge belts around themselves, and danced on the shore. There was a feast of whale blubber, smoked herring spawn, and dried fish. Jewitt noted,
On this occasion, Maquinna gave away no less than 100 muskets, the same number of looking glasses, 400 yards of cloth, and 20 casks of powder, besides other things.
It was the largest potlatch ever seen in that area and helped cement Maquinna's position as the dominant force on the island.